Welcome to the Fast Leader Podcast, where we uncover the leadership life hacks that help you to experience breakout performance faster and rocket to success. And now, here's your host, customer and employee engagement expert and certified emotional intelligence practitioner, Jim Rimbach.
Call Center Coach develops and unites the next generation of call center leaders. Through our e-learning and community, individuals gain knowledge and skills in the 6 core competencies that is the blueprint that develops high-performing call center leaders. Successful supervisors do not just happen. So go to callcentercoach.com to learn more about enrollment and download your copy of the Supervisor Success Path ebook now. Okay, Fast Leader Legion, today I'm excited because we have somebody on the show today who's going to give us some insights into why focusing on customer service can make such a big difference for your organization. Ryan Coon was born and raised in a town called Lake Zurich in the far northwest suburbs of Chicago. He is the eldest of 3 children, and growing up, both of Ryan's parents were involved in family businesses, so he was exposed to the ups and downs of entrepreneurship and the real estate from a very early age. Growing up, Ryan could be found playing sports, watching the 1990s Bulls, and trading and selling basketball cards during the lunch hour. Given his experience around small businesses growing up, Ryan knew that he wanted to study accounting and finance during college, so he applied to one of the top undergraduate programs in the Midwest at the University of Illinois. After college, Ryan wanted to get real-world professional experience, but always knew he would end up owning his own business at some point. And he was an investment banking associate at BMO Capital Markets, and he left this high-paying job to travel, learn to code, and launch a tech startup that solves the need of a previously left-out market, the do-it-yourself landlord. Ryan has a hard-working spirit, and together with his co-founder, Lawrence Jankolo, developed the idea for their company, a bail on a napkin that now solves the needs of thousands of landlords and renters. Today, they hope to leave a legacy of improving lives for both landlords and renters. Ryan continues to live in Chicago with his wife, Nikki, and they just celebrated their 1-year anniversary. Ryan Coon, are you ready to help us get over the hump?
I am. Thanks so much for having me, Jim. Really excited to be talking with you.
Well, I am too, and I know it's going to be a really good discussion, but I've given my Legion a little bit about you, but can you share what your current passion is so that we can get to know you even better?
Yeah, currently I'm spending all of my time and effort really focused on building Avail, the tech startup that Lawrence and I started about 5 years ago, really focused on how do we just build the product and really expand the customer experience, improve the experience for thousands of landlords and renters that use our product today, and hopefully thousands more that will find us over the coming years.
Well, and when you talk about experience, to me, and this discussion that we had prior to our interview, is that's really how you came about to, this problem to solve for. And so if you can't explain the problem, and where the whole experience comes into play.
Yeah, of course. And so in the United States, there's about 48 million residential rental housing properties. About half of those units are institutionally owned. They're professionally managed. They've been using software for a long time. The other half of the rental properties here in the country are actually owned by men and women like us. People who are busy full-time professionals. They own properties on the side, either as a way to build passive income or really to save money for retirement. And so Lawrence, my co-founder, and I previously were these people. We fit this profile. We were busy people working here in Chicago for large banks. We had both separately invested in real estate during 08, 09 when the market kind of took a downturn. And what we found is that we were managing our properties ourselves with a combination of spreadsheets, pen and paper checks, text messages, phone calls, smoke signals, like you name it, we had duct tape it together. And eventually started thinking, this is causing me to spend unnecessary time on my units. And more importantly, it's trickling down and causing a poor experience for the renters who were actually living in our properties. So we eventually started looking for software that would help improve this. And what we found is that no one had built it. Everyone had ignored the men and women like us who fit this profile. And so when we saw that need in the market, we saw really an opportunity to improve the lives of these landlords like us and the renters living in their units. And so we decided to leave our full-time jobs. We spent a couple of years learning how to code, so taught ourselves Ruby on Rails in order to launch the business that is now Avail.
As you're talking and you talk about that whole experience and the experience that you were having and the whole solve for problem, I mean, for me, from that very get-go, you have taken that whole customer-centric element and you even put it into your first hire. If you could tell us about that, I think that'd be great.
Yeah, for sure. So along the way, I mean, Lawrence and I, we've done every part of the business. We built the product, we learned to code, we did that. We then learned digital marketing. So from the ground up, had to learn that, build that muscle. And then once we started getting customers, Lawrence and I were the ones there handling the customer support tickets, the emails, the phone calls. I remember being in my car driving west out on 90, going out to my folks' place and getting a call. I'm taking this customer support call while driving down the highway. And what we eventually found is that Lawrence and I, we were the founders. We had built this company. And one of the areas that we were failing at, unfortunately, was delivering top-tier, high-quality customer support. And when you're dealing with a landlord, I mean, the rental property is their small business. And the renter living in that property is their customer. And so it's incumbent on us as a service provider to provide that top-tier support and service. And so when Lawrence and I recognized that we were failing, unfortunately, we decided to go out. Our very first hire that we brought onto the team, very unconventional for a tech product company to make a customer service person their first hire. But that's what we did. And 5.5 years ago, our very first hire was this woman, Christine. She is still with us today. She's unbelievable. And she now leads one of the most important teams here at the company.
Well, and as you're talking about Christine, I start thinking about, venture capital funding and, you talk about VC funding, talk about, doing a tech startup. I mean, I've worked with a couple tech startups, and for me, oftentimes they're very heavily focused on the whole marketing and sales element of what they have, but it's the whole client success piece, customer success piece, where they're just lost about. And oftentimes, when you think about investors, they don't necessarily think about that either, but it's the stickiness and the renewals, which when you start thinking about over the long haul, really make the significant value generation that a startup needs. Is that correct?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you look at a bucket and you can keep pouring water in the top of the bucket, but if you've got leaks and if the water is just leaking out the bucket, I mean, the bucket's not going to get very full. And so what we've done is we've really tried to use customer service, customer support, first and foremost, to improve the customer experience, deliver the value that we promise. But then also, you're right, it starts plugging those leaks, starts making the bucket so that we can start filling it up and growing the value of the company over time.
So that leads me to the question. If you start talking about, just think that three-legged stool, marketing, sales, client success, or retention, or customer support. When you start thinking about value of your organization, how significant has customer support been to your overall market value?
Oh, it's huge. I mean, I look at our team. Unfortunately, today with COVID, everyone's working remotely. But I'm here in our office today. When I look out at our team and our office here, by far the biggest team here at the company is customer support. I mean, we really rely heavily on having Americans, having humans here in Chicago in our office who are willing and able to answer emails, support, customer phone calls, live chat. And it's really about delivering that top tier customer experience. And that's really how we've, as a company, differentiated ourselves from a lot of other software products out there in the market.
So if you talk about other products in the market and you talk about that whole competitive analysis and competitive differentiation and that separation component, you mentioned some things that a lot of people, may not, perceive that there is big impact on. You talked about, they're all badged or they're all owned, they're all employed by the company, so there's the outsourcing thing. You talked about it being in Chicago where there's, essentially a higher, pay scale because I'm in a major metro. I mean, it's all these factors. And so to justify that, especially when you're starting to look at it from an investor looking at you, how difficult is it to justify that?
Well, I think it's one of those, and you mentioned it, it's for us a big differentiator because we do have landlords and renters who say maybe they use a product like a quick pay or another online payment service. Well, good luck contacting them if something goes wrong. I mean, good luck finding a phone number. We put the phone number for our company on every page of our site. We encourage people to reach out and call us. And I think that if you go online and you read any of the reviews on our product anywhere, one of the things that people say through and through is how good and how responsive our support team is. And I know as a consumer, I'm extremely loyal to some of those brands and companies that deliver that high quality customer support. So I think it's extremely important for us as a company, and really for any company in today's day and age. A lot of people can build a beautiful product, but really delivering that top tier experience is what it's all about.
Well, I think you also differentiated because you, as a founder, you were handling that support for a long time. And so if I think about founders, tech founders, I start getting and thinking about those that could do that. And do you think that is a possible detriment to the whole customer centricity of the organization? Because you even talked about off mic that's one of your core values, right? So do you think others are at risk because that may not be a core value?
Yeah, and I think it's something. I mean, being here in the Midwest, being based in Chicago, we've never had access to like millions and millions and millions of dollars of venture capital like other people would on the coast. And so almost out of necessity, what that focused us and what it forced us to do was really embrace every part of the business, learn it from the inside out as we were getting the company off the ground. And so customer support from day one was something that Lawrence and I were doing. And I think it has given us a new appreciation for ultimately the customers that we serve. Given how important we really view it, I can say one of the things that I think also separates us and is a little bit unique about the way that we handle customer support is I mentioned that team that sits over here 20 feet behind me. But we also, in addition to having a full-time team of staffed people on that team, we also take rotational shifts among every single person in the company. So everyone on the company, you're assigned a week, maybe once every 3 or 4 months, you have a week, and each week that you're on customer support, you're expected to do an hour in the morning, an hour in the evening of customer support. That's in addition to your full-time job. And we make that very clear when we hire people that that's the expectation. And you're required to be there in Zendesk, responding to tickets, answering phone calls. And I think that just really illustrates. And I can say one of the things that I find the most rewarding is when maybe it's someone on our marketing team or someone on our product team, and they get off their week of customer support and they sit there and they're like, wow, I heard feedback, or I heard something that I want to start working on and improving right now, whether it's with the marketing or their product. So I think having customer support as part of what we do really almost elevates everyone else's ability to do their job better.
Well, as you say that, I start thinking about the whole proximity issue, even where we are now, and getting too far away from the customer, can make things very difficult. And when you think about customer centricity, there's also one person that you shouldn't trump, and that is the customer. And so a lot of times when you start thinking about the other side of that, it's a fine line. So here's what I mean by that. Our perspective internally, when we know the business and when we know the organization, in and itself has a bias to it. We know more than they know as far as our inner workings and operations. And so one of the things that I see a lot of people will say that causes some problems is they'll say, Well, I know I wouldn't like that when they're internal. And the fact is that they're not the customer, right? So do you oftentimes have internally, because you do have people that are on the call and doing all that, taking calls, do you find yourself having to battle people thinking their own perception and their own thinking is really what the customers want?
Yeah, absolutely. And I can give you a very clear example of that happened just this week, where one of the features that we offer here at Avail is the ability for a landlord to come onto the Avail website or from their phone, and they can create a listing for their vacant rental unit, and we will send that listing out to 12 of the top sites that renters are searching for. Now, one of those sites that we work with has said, hey, you're still allowed to do this. We're just going to charge you a little bit for that listing. Previously, it was completely free. And what would happen is people on our design team would say, hey, customers are going to hate this. They're going to revolt. They're annoyed. They're mad about this new program, this new process. And what we found is I walked over, I talked to Christine and people on her team. And what she was hearing from the customers is, no, they actually don't mind paying. They get value. It's not being clearly communicated. So that's one really clear example where I think some people on our design team said, hey, this is never going to work if we put a price tag on this. But the customers are saying, I don't mind paying. And so that's one of those examples where that bias can come in, and you're so much better actually talking to the customer and getting their input on whatever the issue is that the audience is encountering in their business.
Great lesson learned. And I think for me, that's exactly what we need to do. Is sometimes we just need to test and we need to ask, because it may not be what we see is the truth. Okay, so when I start thinking about solving this particular problem, looking at the market, and we talked about the commercial aspects, and then we talked about the individual or smaller owner aspects. I mean, are you limited in your market size?
Well, I think this is one of those really interesting topics that we talk about all the time. And there, believe it or not, there actually is a difference in customer mindset. When you're managing more than 10, more than 20, more than 50 rental units, it's much more of a business. And you're much more in that like investor mindset. But if you're an individual, if it's you or me who we're busy full-time professionals, we're entrepreneurs, we're out there running small businesses, we own a couple rentals on the side. I think about those rental properties very different because I own them. My name is on the mortgage. And versus someone who's sitting in an office and maybe they're like 5 layers removed from actually engaging with the renter. I know my renters' names. I know who they are. I know them personally. Whereas that person who owns that bigger portfolio. So back to your question, that difference in mindset does change and does drive a lot of the different decisions that we make. And we know exactly who our target is. Our target are those 8 million individuals in the US. Big number, big market, but we're only focused on half of the market, where it's this half that owns properties on the side in addition to a full-time job. Today, we're not focused on that big commercial institutional owner. They're a different customer profile that we're frankly not prepared to serve today.
Sure. So for me, you're serving the small businessman, a man or woman who has the property, and I get that. And so when you start talking about half of that market and targeting the half of that market, that's where I was meaning as far as a limitation on your market. So do you think you can fully saturate that market and essentially own that market? And then if you do, where do you go then?
Yeah, that's our goal. There's these 8 million individuals in the US who own properties on the side. Today, there's about 200,000 that use the Avail product across the country to manage single-family homes, condos, small multi-family properties. That means we've got 7.8 million landlords out there who we would love to still service. If and when we ever get anywhere close to that number, I think what we ultimately do at that point is we just say, beyond the service, beyond the features that we offer today, how else can we help? What other products, what other services? Like we know these customers intimately. We know how they think about their properties. After all, we do eat our own dog food. We use our own product. And so it's all about, okay, how else can we expand this relationship?
So you got a long way to go. Big opportunity. So I think that's fantastic. Okay, so now with that big opportunity and just talking to you, obviously there's a lot of passion associated with what you do. And when I start thinking about that, one of the things that we look at on the show for passion and inspiration are quotes. Is there a quote or two that you like that you can share?
Yeah, I think about one of my favorite quotes is, I believe, the Wayne Gretzky quote about you'll always miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. And I think that gets back to what we were talking about earlier, where it's about testing and trying and putting yourself out there and trying new things and experimenting and seeing what works and seeing what doesn't resonate with the customer. That's definitely one of my favorite quotes. I also spend a lot of time just thinking more broadly about delivering back value and more around, I haven't found a perfect quote on this, but really the style of leadership that I've adopted is more of a servant mentality, where it's all about serving the customer and me as the leader of the organization serving all of our 33 employees here at the company.
Well, however, we don't get to that path and continue to capitalize on that rest of that open market without, going through some of the testing and the innovation and the creative thinking and making mistakes. And one of the things that we talk about on the show is getting over the hump, because when we those times when we've had that, lesson learned, and we have to pivot. Is there a time where you've gotten over a hump that you can share?
Yeah, the obstacle or that hump that I oftentimes think about was actually that decision of what we were just talking about, where it's which part of the market do we want to focus on? And there was, a monumental divide here at the company. There was half the people in one camp, half in the other, and we didn't like each other. It was really divided. It was it was as divided as you can imagine. And so really as the leader, it was a challenge trying to figure out, okay, how do we get through this? Because the company almost came to a standstill as we were thinking about, do we target those bigger owners and customers that, we can target them? That's a traditional B2B sale. They're listed in the yellow pages. We can go out and we can call them. Or do we focus more on the landlords like us, who are busy professionals, part-time landlords? It's a much more fragmented market. We have to employ different techniques for finding those people through digital marketing. And there's been a lot of companies that have tried this and have failed. And so which of those paths do we go? Company ground to a halt. That was our biggest obstacle here in the 5.5 years since we launched the company.
Okay, so you opened the door. You have to tell me how did you get to the path that you're on?
Yeah, the way that we got there, and it took a little bit of time. What we ended up doing is, first and foremost, going back to the customer centricity. We went out and we actually talked with customers and we interviewed them, and we got so much input about the value that we were delivering. We got input on how do these people perceive us as a company? How do they treat our employees? And we started just getting more and more feedback from the customer, feedback from investors, feedback from friends and family. We talked with anyone and everyone who would listen about this. That was the biggest. And then we took that feedback, Lawrence, my co-founder, and I did, and we sat there and we internalized it. And we really looked at ourselves and we said, why did we start this company? What's the problem that we're trying to solve? And the inside baseball is that Lawrence and I we were co-founders. We've been friends for almost 20 years. We were ultimately divided. So it was almost like you had mom and dad at the top of the pyramid, like sparring over this. And so it was a really contentious time. And what Lawrence and I did is we sat there, we looked at feedback, and we ultimately said, look, the one thing that we can agree on is whether it goes your way or my way, we're ultimately, we can disagree, but as soon as we walk out of this room, we're going to commit. And we're both like, whoever's way it goes is not viewed as the wrong one, the loser in the argument. We have to go out in front of our team, in front of our investors, in front of our customers, and be aligned in this. And we have to be fully committed, going full steam ahead. And so that's ultimately kind of how we got through that period. I'm glad that we went through that. There have been plenty of other disagreements as any good relationship, good founder marriage you'll have, but one of those periods that we went through, and I'm appreciative that we did.
Well, when I start thinking about that, I'm sure that foundation also helps for other obstacles that you're gonna get through, because it ended up being, a positive outcome ultimately that you were able to connect, and commit to. But I start thinking about that market opportunity. I start thinking about where you are now, and then I start thinking about a whole, ton of goals that you may have. But is there one you can share with us?
Yeah, the one goal that we have right now is really to, almost be better at serving our customers. Like any product, we do have people who will churn and they will leave our product. And one of our key objectives for the year, one of our main goals for the year, is to bring that percentage down. So it's really about focusing, at the top of the funnel, are we getting the best people who are the best fit for our product? Because ultimately marketing can have an impact on that churn rate. And then once we get those ideal customers at the top of the funnel, how do we give them a product experience that they love? And how do we wow the customer? And then how do we close that loop? And how do we, almost through product marketing, reiterate back to the customer that how much value that they are getting out of our product? So implementing things like a monthly recap where, people can look at how much time or how much money that they've saved by using our product. So that's kind of main objective number one for all of 2020. And I'm happy to say that we're having a lot of success plugging some of those leaks in that bucket.
And the Fast Leader Legion wishes you the very best. Now, before we move on, let's get a quick word from our sponsor. An Even Better Place to Work is an easy-to-use solution that gives you a continuous diagnostic on employee engagement along with integrated activities that will improve employee engagement and leadership skills in everyone. Using this award-winning solution is guaranteed to create motivated, productive, and loyal employees who have great work relationships with their colleagues and your customers. To learn more about An Even Better Place to Work, visit beyondmorale.com/better. All right, here we go, Fast Leader Legion. It's time for the Hump Day Hoedown. Okay, Ryan, the Hump Day Hoedown is a part of our show where you give us good insights fast. So I'm going to ask you several questions, and your job is to give us robust yet rapid responses that are going to help us move onward and upward faster. Ryan, Coon, are you ready to hoe down?
Let's do it.
All right. So what is holding you back from being an even better leader today?
Biggest thing holding me back is definitely my desire for control and my almost fear or trouble that I have delegating different tasks or different responsibilities.
And what is the best leadership advice you have ever received?
Best leadership advice is definitely around focusing my time and my effort on helping our employees learn, grow, and develop. And if I help each person on our team learn, grow, and develop, they'll deliver a better and better experience for our customers.
And what is one of your secrets that you believe contributes to your success?
As strange as this may sound, it is stubbornness. So I think it goes back to number one. I think it's one of those I won't give up. And one of our other core values is around persistence. And it's an acknowledgement that even if things aren't working today, being stubborn and knowing that we can make them work eventually.
And what do you feel is one of your best tools that helps you lead in business or life?
Feels strange to refer to a person as a tool, but I would say my co-founder. My co-founder is a good friend, and that I think that starting a business, starting this company in particular without Lawrence would be really difficult. And in a lot of ways, having a co-founder, a business partner like him just makes business and life better.
And what would be one book you'd recommend to our Legion? And it could be from any genre.
I mean, on the topic of customer experience, customer support, customer happiness, by far one of my favorite books is Delivering Happiness. It's the Tony Hsieh story of building Zappos. We've borrowed so many themes and so many ideas and topics from that book. I think it's really well written about putting the customer experience first and foremost.
Okay, Fast Leader Legion, you can find links to that and other bonus information from today's show by going to fastleader.net/Ryan Coon. Let me do that again. Gosh, I drew a blank on your name for a second. Okay, Fast Leader Legion, you can find links to that and other bonus information from today's show by going to fastleader.net/Ryan Coon. Okay, Ryan, this is my last Hump Day Hold On question. Imagine you were given the opportunity to go back to the age of 25, and you can take the knowledge and skills that you have now back with you, but you can't take it all. So you can take back just one. So what skill or piece of knowledge would you take back with you, and why?
Well, I think the one piece of experience or knowledge that I would take back with me, I think like any good entrepreneur, I consider myself somewhat paranoid. So I'll be sitting, day and night, I wake up in the middle of the night, I look at our dashboard around new customers, new revenue, new kind of engagement with our product. I think the thing that I would take back to my 25-year-old self is the idea of worrying about things that are within your control and acknowledging and accepting things outside of your control. So I find myself also sometimes, even still today, worrying about things that I have zero control over. And I think it's really important to focus only your time, effort, and stress on things that are within your power to change and control.
Ryan, I had fun with you today. Can you please share with the Fast Leader Legion how they can connect with you?
Yeah, they can connect with me. My email is Ryan, RYAN, @avail, AVAIL.co. I'm also on social media. So on LinkedIn, probably the most active, Ryan Coon, or on Twitter @HelloAvail.
Ryan Coon, thank you for sharing your knowledge and wisdom. The Fast Leader Legion honors you, and thanks you for helping us get over the hump. Thank you for joining me on the Fast Leader Show today. For recaps, links from every show, special offers, and access to download and subscribe, if you haven't already, head on over to fastleader.net so we can help you move onward and upward faster.